What's going on, Voltrons? It is the 28th of April. Welcome inside the vault for a Ravens lunch hour live stream. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside my co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison. Today's live stream is brought to you by our friends at Manta Sleep, and we are thrilled to now be in the rear view officially of the 2025 NFL Draft, but not before we go pick by pick, Sarah. Count them, all 11 were actually used and selected by Eric DaCosta and company throughout the course of the weekend. So we're going to get into a number of different things, and we have content and specific analysis that's been planned for each pick. All 11 new Ravens who are going to be trying and vying for what's become a very coveted, Sarah, back end of the 53-man roster spot, which will make this summer very, very interesting from a roster construction standpoint. But first, we have not heard or seen of you or from you since Friday. So I hope your weekend went well. We had an awesome time catching up. I know your parents will be wheels up later today, but we were all thinking of you this weekend. I'm glad you got your time in with your family.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you for holding things down all day Saturday. There was no way that I was going to be able to even jump in for a second. I mean, from the moment I woke up to the moment we went to bed, we had about 45 people here. We had the baptism, parents in town, lots of cleaning and getting everything ready. And then I think people started, I think I got to bed around 12:30 or whatever. And so you and I were trying to catch up yesterday playing phone tag. You called me, and I kid you not, thought I was going to lay down for a 20-minute nap. I slept for 4 hours yesterday from about 12:30 to 4:30, something like that. And so, and then I went back to bed at like 9 and didn't open my eyelids till my alarm went off at 6:30. So I know I caught up on my sleep. I just feel bad. I don't know that you caught up on your sleep.
Early this morning, I would have told you, I don't know if I did either, but I think I'm good now. I've been bearing through it. That post-draft fog was alive and well back-to-back mornings yesterday and today, but I made it to my workouts, got some grocery shopping in. There's a massive construction project that's going on, literally drill hammering about 15 feet to my right in Canton. But we're trudging through, and we're ready to dive into everything that we just watched take place throughout the course of this weekend. So awesome. I'm glad that you had an awesome time, and tell your parents I said hello before you go wheels up, because they are some of my favorites that I've never even met in person, and they're still my favorites because of the virtual time that we spent together, which tells you all you need to know. Salt of the earth. Here it is, Sarah, the 11 prospect draft class, which of course began on Thursday night with Malachi Starks in the opening round, the safety out of Georgia. Day 2 came Mike Green and the Marshall edge rusher, who fell to the Ravens at 59. They took a calculated gamble. They felt comfortable doing so. We'll get into that in just a bit. Day 2, Emery Jones, also was day 2. One of the second of 2 picks on Friday was the tackle from LSU. Teddy Buchanan got things started on day 3, the linebacker out of Cal in the 4th round. That was their lone pick in the 4th round. And their lone pick in the 5th was another tackle out of a small school, Alabama A&M, Carson Vincent. And then, Sarah, came the onslaught, just a litany of picks in the 6th round, 5 to be exact. A couple corners by the names of Bilal Cohn out of Western Michigan and Robert Longerbeam out of Rutgers. They then drafted a kicker. Could it be Justin Tucker's successor? We'll have a chat about that. It's Tyler Loop out of Arizona. LeJonte Wester, wide receiver and return specialist out of Deion Sanders' program in Boulder, Colorado. Aeneas Peebles out of Virginia Tech, a defensive tackle, a valuable pick, high valuable pick at 6. And then, of course, last but not least, Garrett Dellinger, a guard, an offensive lineman, primarily guard out of LSU in the 7th round. So that is your class at a glance. Do you have any big picture thoughts before we get into our pick-by-pick talks?
Yeah, I do. I mean, look, always on paper, things look good. You look around, all the draft pundits give them A's plus, A pluses all over the place. I think that kind of a standard the Ravens set last year that I hope they can repeat is with their first 2 picks, they got 2 studs in Nate Wiggins and Roger Rosengarten. They, had maybe weren't day 1 starters, but by the end were starting and had significant contributions. I think the Ravens have a chance to do that again with their first 2 draft picks in Malachi Starks and Mike Green. Malachi Starks, I see him again on the field a lot. We'll see how Many times they play with, 3 safeties, maybe putting Ardarius in the nickel or moving everybody around, in the different places, because versatility is the name of the game back there with the defensive backs. But really, they wanted to attack the defense. They did so early. 6 defensive picks. Not a lot on offense. Really, if you think about it, they had 2 special teams picks in Loop and I want to say Teddy Buchanan. I see them as 2 massive special and the returner, obviously, in Wester. And so to me, it was more like 2 special teams picks, 6 defensive picks, and then 3 offensive picks, and all 3 along the offensive line. And so no running backs, no tight ends, technically 1 wide receiver, but I really see him more as a returner. And so the Ravens really wanted to attack that defensive side. They did so. Special teams, not talked about enough, became a weakness for the Ravens, not characteristic under John Harbaugh. And so they attacked those. And I'd say only really one needs still really to go, and that's nose tackle, right? As a big run stuffer, you have Travis Jones there. They will definitely address that. But overall, I think if they can repeat what they did last year with their top 2 picks and then be able to find other guys to fill holes here and there, then it will be viewed as a solid draft going forward.
Not to mention the potential sleeper that could exist out there to be determined, but as an undrafted rookie, there are a slew of players over the last 48 hours that we learned of that have either signed some sort of contract short-term or received an invite to an open tryout for minicamp. There's a number of those reports that are out there. So we'll just kind of follow along. We'll wait till there's an official list, but obviously that happens the second the draft is over. Eric DaCosta and his scouting department immediately kind of dive into that whole pool of players. So there'll be more to come on there as well. But let's get to it. Opening night feels like a year ago at this point, with the 20 combined hours of live coverage that we put forth for you over the last several days. But Malachi Starks got it going. He is the Georgia safety who over 20 pundits in the study that Jonas Schaefer put forth prior to the draft had him mocked to Baltimore, which had me talking sideways going into the draft in terms of what I was confident in, Sarah.
You said you were confident that the Ravens will not select him because everybody was predicting it, but it was the worst kept secret. The Ravens did indeed take him. You went out on the limb. You went out on a limb. And it
How clever of you, Bobby. Really, what a great take that's just ice cold. But anyway, 27th overall. They get their guy, Sarah, perhaps the most ready plug-and-play potential starter that will fit in this secondary and allow Kyle Hamilton to be used in the way that we know this staff wants to use him, as that Swiss Army knife, as somebody that can impact really all 3 levels of the defense. Malachi has championship pedigree. He won a couple with the Georgia Bulldogs down in Athens. He had 6 career picks, 23 career PBUs, 197 career tackles. Kirby Smart raves about him. He's got a great high-level football IQ. He dealt with adversity as a young man, and now he heard his name called after, I guess, falling in terms of some folks' boards, because you saw him as early as going in the first half of the top half, I should say, of the first round, and instead the Ravens get him in a highly valuable situation there towards the end of the opening round.
Yeah, we talked about him a lot, obviously, on Friday after the Ravens first picked him. So if you want to go get a deep dive on Malachi Starks, you can go back to our Friday live stream at noon. But the name of the game was like his versatility and his cerebral high football IQ. That was kind of what we dove into. We actually looked at 5 different traits that he'd be bringing to Baltimore. So I think, so why was he there available at number 27? Probably because his poor testing at the combine, right? And then maybe even a little bit of his coverage stats in 2024. He allowed 8.9 yards per target, and he allowed opposing quarterbacks to get a 99.6 passer rating. So not the best. A lot of pundits will say it was just because, the situations he was put in, all that versatility. But I do think he can be more of that free safety who can make sure nothing gets over their head, so that, as you said, Kyle Hamilton can be used in a Swiss Army knife role. But again, he could do that too. We talked about how His number 24, he had, a chain with the number 24. It was dedicated to his cousin that passed away. And it looks like the Ravens did indeed give him number 24. But the biggest thing, Bobby, that we weren't able to showcase the way we were on Friday is that cerebral mind that he has. And he did this interview with Garrett Downing over at the Ravens, former coworker of mine. And they asked him to break down a couple of plays, and you can see why. You get a little taste of why Eric DeCosta said he was the best interview he's ever seen at the Combine or he's ever conducted at the Combine, and that he already talks as a rookie like he's a coach.
Put you on the spot here, all right? So I got some plays here.
Okay, cool.
From your college career.
Let's do it.
And I want you to take a look at some of these and break down what you're seeing on these plays.
Okay.
You probably know this one right off the bat when you see what this play is.
So this was a big concept for them. This is trips. They have the tight end at 3. They only have so many concepts they run from the tight end at 3 with speed in the slot. My corner was actually supposed to give me an under call, so I was supposed to end up on 1. He would end up on 2. We're in cover 3, so I have hook droppers and I have my middle field safety, so just being able to use that and stay outside leverage. I make it seem like he's beating me. I get a good arm bar, so I'm able to turn around and find the ball. And once the ball's in the air, it's just about being comfortable, and I think I'm really good at being comfortable with the ball in the air. This is my first game. This is like my 4th play in the game. They're in trips. A lot of times when they get formation, they boundary their motion out to see what you're in, and most of the time try to get a matchup on a backer with a wide receiver or a slot running back to the field, being able to lose leverage. But they didn't, so they stayed in it. But with 2 being on the ball, I'm knowing that he's going vertical, but I'm also knowing that I'm losing Javon Bullitt, who's my help. He's not able to get a reroute, so I know I got to stay inside vertical. So when he gets to me, just being able to kind of do the same thing, just kind of arm bar. I'm in phase, so I'm able to look. And then whenever you look, you want to look and lean so you don't lose the receiver. And then at that point, it's just, making a play on the ball like we talked about earlier.
All I think about, Bobby, when I hear stuff hear that, I'm like, okay, no more busted coverages, right? We've got too many smart guys back there between Hamilton and him. We know what our Darius Washington did. You've got Roquan in the middle. Hopefully they can coach up, whoever's going to be next to him. Nate Wiggins in his 2nd year, Marlon Humphrey, no more busted coverages. Everybody should know where they're supposed to be and when they should be there.
First thing I thought of was, I think he's going to translate well that IQ, that experience within the Baltimore scheme, because how complex it is in Baltimore with the amount of disguise packages they have, the disguise looks that they have. And he was kind of giving you his own dose of what they were doing during his time at Georgia. So as a rookie, he's going to be drinking from the fire hose as he learns sort of the game plan and the strategy, the scheme, those looks, those calls, the terminology within the confines of Zach Orr's defense. But so far, so good. And I think you're spot on. The word that we kind of coined last week was cerebral, and that was on full display in that clip with Garrett right there. That is your opening round, 1st rounder safety out of Georgia, Malachi Starks, which of course, Sarah, leads us to day 2 and the 2nd round. And 59 overall, Mike Green, here's his name called. He drops for one reason and one reason only, which has obviously been well documented throughout the course of his pre-draft process. He has not shied away from it whatsoever, and it is the 2 sexual assault accusations, one from high school, one from his time at the University of Virginia, and that ultimately allowed him, or unfortunately for his case and his draft case, slip to 59. The Ravens, as we discussed last week, did their homework. They fielded a number of questions over the weekend at the post-draft day 2 press conference, and they felt comfortable enough to take it. That is that. 17 sacks in 2024, led all of FBS. He had 131 career tackles. Sarah, this dude was an absolute beast. On top of those statistics right there, 22 and a half tackles for loss. 84 tackles in his senior year, 2 PBUs, and again, he was a transfer from the University of Virginia. He's got a motor. He's got a plan. Adafeowe had the motor and the athleticism coming out of Penn State, but not sure he had the technique plan. Mike Green sure seems like he's got all of it.
This right here, you just outlined the off-the-field allegations, so you did that well, and I'll leave it there. Speaking purely about football, Mike Green in the 2nd round at number 52 is my absolute favorite pick of the Ravens draft. He's clearly the steal of the Ravens draft, and there's some competition. He might be the biggest steal in the entire NFL. Bobby, the biggest need in my mind of what the Ravens were looking for this offseason was a pass rush specialist, somebody who has the potential to become a game wrecker and can win one-on-one battles. Bobby, yes, the Ravens finished second overall with 54 sacks last year in the NFL, but that was mostly due to schematics. The Ravens only had a 33% pass rush win rate. So that tells you that Zach Orr and Dr. Rush and all those guys were kind of scheming things up. Maybe Nnamdi Madubuike was opening things up with double teams. This guy right here, he had less than a 1% chance to be available at number 59. That's according to the ESPN Draft Day predictor. Less than a 1% chance. Talk about a complete steal. Bobby, he's up there with Abdul Carter, maybe ranked just behind him. He's football-wise a top 10 to top 12 pick. The FBS sack leader, I mean, that's going to go down, but he's just an absolute beast and has a motor. His legs never stop churning. And to your point, when you say he has a plan, he can set up offensive tackles. He's got speed, he's got bend, and he will make an offensive tackle overcommit one way or another, and then he's out to get him. He can also watch this play right here. We're watching his stats. Oh, that's a different one. He can on the run on one play. It looks like it was against this Iowa team. Is that Iowa right there? Here's right here. Watch him take on whoever it is. Look at him go down, and he'll hit a guard, and the running back goes running right into the guard because he's got nowhere to go. He completely sealed the edge. So look, this is the guy that the Ravens football-wise have been looking for. He's somebody that you don't even have to ask for everything right away because you've got Odafe Oweh and you've got Kyle Van Noy. He can be that rush outside linebacker where Odafe Oweh most of the time was playing last year, but Mike Green has a better get-off than Odafe Oweh, and he has a better finish than Odafe Oweh. And so I can see these three guys kind of moving around a little bit. You don't want to always use your best pass rusher in coverage, but I think Mike Green could do that too. Look at these stats here from Ken McCusick. He said that Mike Green is in the 97th percentile in PFF pass rush productivity. He's 86% percentile in finish rate. Now that's not gonna be that good in the NFL, but this is the guy we had on Emery Hunt. We asked him, what do the Ravens need to do to get over the hump in the playoffs? And we've asked a lot of people, but Emery said what a lot of people have said. The Ravens play with a lead. You got to get after a quarterback. We saw what the Eagles did to Patrick Mahomes and how they were able to win that Super Bowl. You needed somebody who was going to create that pass rush on his own. I don't know how far he's going to come in year one. We will see. But this is what they needed. It's because of the off-field allegations he fell. And it was very interesting to me that Eric DeCosta was like, hey, we did our homework and we know what he was accused of and what he was not accused of. I don't even know what all that means. Like, we haven't been able to find the details of exactly what he's accused of. So it's hard to even speak to it, which is why we're more focused on the football side. But if he's able to leave that in his past and nothing like that comes up again, football-wise, this is a major, major pick for the Ravens at number 59 when this is a top 10 or 12 pick. Otherwise, if had those off-field allegations not been there.
Everybody on the national side is saying very similar things about this free fall and ultimate win for the Ravens on the football side of things, including Brian Baldinger, who did a Baldy's breakdown on Mike Green. Again, the Marshall edge rusher who the Ravens selected in the second round, 59th overall on Friday night.
The Ravens selected Mike Green with the 60th pick in the draft. He was the very best edge rusher at the Senior Bowl all week long. He was actually number one in every single drill. He started the drill, and you saw the talent. He played up at Ohio State. He went to Columbus, and I thought he was the best player on the field against the Buckeyes when he went up against them. Better than any edge rusher. This spin is crazy. You don't see many guys spinning outside right here and then chasing down Will Howard. Like his ability
I got to
when he
replay
went
that.
up against him.
Yeah, that's spin.
Like better
Look
than
at
any
this
edge
spin.
rusher. Like this spin is crazy. Like you don't see many guys spinning outside right here. And then
Keep in mind, this is not a Marshall Conference opponent. This is the national championship team. Yeah. He's facing the title winner.
chasing down Will Howard. Like his ability and anything that he does, he plays with a level of violence and it looks fun for him. Like, I don't know why he dropped to 6th pick, but like just violent. Like just get rid of the tight end. Take him out like it's a Sunday night trash. All right? Put it on the corner. Put it on the curb. That's what he does to tight ends. He destroys.
Okay, this is the one I was speaking to. I thought it was these highlights earlier where he's about to take on the guard. Okay. And then so the running back gets stuck, and then his teammates come from the opposite side and take back the running back in the backfield for probably a -3 or 4 yards.
Now you watch him right here. Here he is off the edge. Like, bam. Like here comes the guard. A little G pull action. Bam. All right. Now get off the block. Set the edge. All right. Let everybody come and clean up. This is a good football player. Honestly, like the Ravens just know how to evaluate these guys. Chuck Smith, the pass rush specialist coach, is going to love him. Like the backs comes over and they want to chip him, but he gets off it and he still makes the play. No matter what you try to do to Mike Green, he's got a counter to it. And he's just getting started at 6'3.5" and 250 pounds. Like he's got all the ability right here to be a great edge rusher, to be a great edge player. It's like just get off the block and go make the tackle. Like it makes it. It's like a can of corn to him, blockers. He just knows how to defeat them.
You got a can of corn.
Well, Sarah.
Yeah, my favorite pick, Bobby, right there. Football wise.
That makes me want to track down Baldy because I caught up with him and tried to get him on the show when I was in Indy at the Combine, and just the way that he's speaking of what he's watching there is obviously under. You get it as my screen freezes and I bring up this screenshot just to confirm what Baldy was already saying. You see it, Chuck Smith from Friday night. You already know he cannot wait to get his hands on Mike Green in that pass rush room and build on what he's already built on. Had a lot of success doing, Sarah, as the outside linebackers coach over the last couple seasons. They've either finished first or second in sacks league wide since he showed up a couple years ago. I don't think there's any coincidence about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And before we move on to the 3rd round pick of Emery Jones, there's a lot of super chats, and I know we have an ad read. Do we want to go and hit some super chats real quick before we go to round 3?
Yes, we do. They're flying in. You're right. John R. hit us in the beginning with a super sticker. Appreciate you, John. Channel member of ours. Heather McCubbin, Sarah.
Hey, Bobby and Sarah, sad we didn't get Desmond Watson, but glad Tampa is taking a chance on him as a UDFA. So happy we got LeJohntay Wester.
We'll talk about him, one of the 5-6 rounders that came in. This one was from Colorado, Dion's program. James Green, a channel member, says, good afternoon, guys. They got my guy, Bobby Mike. He will be AFC Rookie Defensive Player of the Year. Calling his shot about Mike Green. Rave Kingdom.
First time, EDC, I'm proud of you. Hashtag Ben Cleveland. You weren't proud of him when he got Ben Cleveland?
I guess Rave's love for Ben hadn't started yet. Sodblitz 34 says, despite having 2 of the 33 teams' top 5 value picks, they only had the Ravens as the 9th best value draft. That's how bad our day 3 picks were. All projections there, but yeah, I hadn't seen that. So that's on the 33rd teams. Oh, you did see that. Okay.
Yeah. 9th best. I mean, 9th best value is not terrible, right? But he's just talking about, given that Mike Green was such good value, maybe the end of the draft brought that down.
I think Warren Sharp had him at the bottom half of the top 10 as well.
Maybe that's the one I saw was the Warren Sharp. I just remember seeing
it was 7, okay. Somewhere around there. So yeah, and it's all different analytical systems that go into that and whatnot. Stevie Nicks.
He says, Bama fan who hated watching Auburn get beat by Cal. Friends and I couldn't stop talking about this Teddy guy all over the field. Don't sleep. Dude is fire.
That was the first pick of Eric DeCosta's on day 3. Teddy Buchanan, Cal linebacker, as Stevie notes here, and we'll get to him in just a bit. Sodblitz 34, another one, says EDC equals mid. Any of us would have made the same first 2 picks with the same players on the board. You don't get genius credit for common sense. Oh, he's firing them in, Sarah.
He's
He's
mad.
doing one of his, you know what he does. He gets into this flurry of super chats. Here we go.
He says, could have traded some late picks to move up in the 4th and get impact players. Our big move was back 5 spots in the 4th to move up 5 spots in the 6th. He questions.
Which was an analytical decision. Jeff Zarebeck asked Eric about that. I thought that was a hilarious exchange. Sodblitz34 says, if your GM values quantity of picks over quality of players, it means he doesn't trust his scouting department. 6 of 8 of our day 3 picks won't make the team. Kobe Pruitt.
6 of the 8 won't make the team. Look, I got to check those numbers. If you dominate the Senior Bowl, there's a very good chance you're getting picked by EDC and the Ravens. That is true.
And Aeneas Peebles, we'll get to Aeneas Peebles, aka Fub. That's his nickname that he's proclaimed. Was one of those guys. We'll get to him a little bit later on among those day 3 picks. Sod is unloading his bank account. Top 5 value picks. Number 5, Kansas City, 16 at pick 32. 4, Baltimore, number 8 at pick 27. 3, Philadelphia, number 4 at pick 31. 2, Baltimore, number 10 at pick 59. 1, Cleveland, number 45 at pick 144. Not a fan.
He says Mike Green is a beast. If you tell him to just go get the QB, he will be even more of a beast in the stunts and schemes that Orr adopted from Mike Mack.
Kobe with another one. Mike Green is the type of player Mike Tomlin wouldn't have to tell go. He's definitely a whoa. Well said, Kobe. Not a fan with another one.
Find Mike Green doing drills at the Super Bowl. Oh yeah. I tweeted one of them. I tweeted one of them where he just ran over the Commanders' 1st round draft pick left tackle, whose name is escaping me right now, but he just like ran over him, snatched his soul is what he did.
Heather McCubbins, Tyler Loop, the next Tucker, or better, Tyler Loop, 6th rounder, Arizona kicker. We'll talk about him in just a bit, Heather. We appreciate all of you guys for being here on this Monday. We are going pick by pick analysis, as you can tell. And next up is Emery Jones Jr. from LSU. But first, this episode is brought to you by Manta Sleep, the official sleep mask partner of the Vault. And all of these sleep masks, and my goodness, were they so useful for me, more so than usual, for the 3 or 4 hours of clip that I got, Sarah, over the weekend. Okay. They were huge. They give you true 100% blackout for a deeper sleep. You got C-shaped eye cups for unbeatable side sleep comfort. 0 pressures applied to your eyelids or lashes. You got advanced materials that are built into these masks that give you ventilation for unmatched breathability. And I swear I needed it this weekend because in my room, purposely, I do not have blackout curtains. I like to get up and go win the day. I also like to win my sleeping patterns. I did not this weekend, but Manta at least allowed me to get good quality sleep with my sleep mask. Mine is the Manta Sleep Mask Pro. Holly actually just won one of these, by the way. Holly Keefe was one of our 3 giveaway winners over the weekend. We gave out a Kyle Hamilton signed football helmet courtesy of Preston. We gave out Orioles tickets courtesy of Stuggies here in Fells Point. And Manta was kind enough to send over some masks. Holly, you still got to email us with your address, by the way. Do that when you get a chance. But one of the many masks that you have available to you right now at mantasleep.com. We appreciate the ongoing support that they give us, even in the off season. They are one of our most trusted and longest standing brand sponsors. And if you find something you guys like at checkout, use our discount code VAULT10. It's VAULT10. That'll get you 10% off your next purchase. And as we always say, if you want to support the show, support our brand sponsors. On to Emery Jones, the 3rd rounder, 91st overall, 6'5", 315 with a boatload of starts, Sarah, over his career at LSU and just 1 sack allowed in 864 total snaps. He's a good old Southern boy, Sarah, and he caught up with the local news that were literally in his house the moment that he was drafted on would have been Friday night.
It's a blessing, to be in this position. It's a blessing to go to the Baltimore Ravens, which is a great organization that I'm ready to go bleed for. Yes, sir. Everybody excited, to have me up in Baltimore. So, I'm excited to get there and get to work. Yes, sir. God's timing. We big believers in God here. You know what I'm saying? And it was on His timing. It happened perfect timing, honestly. So, just happy to, get going. Know where I'll be at, the next few years, and ready to get to work.
What do you want the Baltimore Ravens to know about Emery Jones?
They're getting a guy who's going to come in and help lead, a guy who's going to come in and help the organization win. And I feel like that's one of the biggest things in this league on this level is winning. And I feel like I'm a guy who's going to come in and help that. So
I'm ready to bleed for him. That is Emery Jones Jr., your new potential Patrick McCary replacement when it comes to his swing abilities. And maybe, just maybe, Sarah, he's got that positional flexibility to challenge a guard in the coming years.
That's exactly what they drafted him to be, is the Patrick McCary replacement. Whether he can do it, we will see. Bobby, he played, was he a 3-year starter there at LSU? Of his 2,355 snaps, 2,323 were at right tackle. So he's definitely a tackle. And this was not only projected by draft pundits, but also John Harbaugh talks about wanting to take a look at him at guard. And that is exactly, again, what Patrick McCary was last year. He was like the swing tackle until he won the left guard spot. And so this is, the first guy, obviously the first 2 picks you would expect to have an immediate impact right away. Emery Jones, it would actually be a great thing if we didn't see him in year 1, because then that means none of the tackles went down and that Roger Rosengarten and Ronnie Stanley were both healthy the whole year. And then it would mean that Andrew Voorhees won out and earned that left guard spot, right? That's what we would like to see. And then maybe in his rookie year, he can grow. But if we see him, he certainly has that right tackle experience. So if say Ronnie Stanley were to go down, maybe you would just take Roger Rosengarten, put him over on the left side, and then go plug in Emery Jones, who just, like I said, played nonstop practically at the right tackle position. During his call with Eric DaCosta, they talked about, are you excited to come out here and block for Lamar Jackson? He said it would be an honor to block for Lamar Jackson. And Bobby, with the Ravens drafting 3 offensive linemen, this is just the first, and also getting 2 from LSU. It is the Ravens saying, listen, we got to continue to protect our franchise quarterback. We know that with Lamar Jackson, we have a almost 4% win rate record. And without him, we're at 30%. It drops by almost 45%. So they've got to continue to protect him. And so the question just is, will they need him in year 1? Will they need him? They'll definitely let him compete for a guard spot, but it would be nice if he doesn't take a single snap at tackle and both Roger and Ronnie stay healthy the whole year like they did last year.
Maybe he'll become buddy-buddy with one of his fellow offensive linemen as well, because they clearly have a similar passion for hunting. Ben Cleveland and a buddy of his on the right, Emery Jones down in the heart of Mississippi, good old Southern boy on the left. We'll see if those two end up sharing some time together.
They for sure are going to be best friends.
Outside of football, for sure. Round 4, day 3. It all began 129 overall, Sarah, when Teddy Buchanan, the linebacker out of Cal, and a player who transferred in, from Cal Davis. He has a lot of football under his belt. 5 years of football with that transfer year added in. He had 2 forced fumbles a year ago for Cal, 5 sacks, 114 tackles. He's a special teamer for sure. He's going to have an opportunity to probably prove himself, Sarah, as a special teamer. And then from there, is there going to be an open competition perhaps for weak side linebacker alongside Roquan Smith this summer? We will see. Obviously begs the question, knowing what happened to Trenton in year 2, which should have been, at least on paper, his first full year as a starter. We all know the rotation followed after his demotion between Chris Board and Malik Harrison, but they go early linebacker, day 3.
Teddy Buchanan, to me, is a Chris Board replacement, right? Harrison kind of went both outside and inside linebacker. But Buchanan, he believes in special teams. He wants to play special teams. And being a 4th round draft pick, that's enough to compete with Trenton Simpson. It's enough for Trenton Simpson to be like, okay, well, I can't just act like this job is mine. Not that he would have done that anyway. So it's just enough to compete, but not enough to be like, okay, they don't believe in Trenton Simpson, right? If they had gotten like a 1st round pick, then it's like, okay, Trenton Simpson, he's out. So it's enough just to put enough pressure on him to be like, watch out. There's always guys coming. The young guys are always coming up and looking for your job. And so that does make me a little bit nervous, to be honest with you, knowing that they gave Trenton Simpson the starting job last year, and then he ultimately lost it to Borden Harrison. They both had about they had 540 snaps at inside linebacker. So that's like one position that I'm like, you know, how is that going to turn out? Whether it's Buchanan or whether it's Simpson, are either one of them going to be worthy of that starting spot? And so you really hope that Trenton Simpson takes another step, that he learned from last year, that his first 2 years got a little bit of starting experience, but then lost it. So I'm a little bit nervous about it. But man, when you talk about Teddy Buchanan, his athletic traits are off the charts, Bobby. His 40 inch vertical, I have a 40 up here. It says 38.5. Maybe there's an unofficial time, but it was the highest vert among linebackers. And so this slide right here that we got up compares Teddy. Oh, it was 40. I was looking at Fred Warner's. He did have a 40-inch vert. I mean, that's crazy. The highest among all inside linebackers. And so this tweet compares Fred Warner's athleticism and measurables to compared to Teddy Buchanan's. So Fred Warner ran a 4.6440. Teddy Buchanan, 4.6 flat. 38.5 vert for Fred. 40 for Teddy. 119-inch broad jump for Fred. 125 for Teddy. 21 bench press reps for Fred. 26 bench press reps for Teddy. That's just comparing the athleticism and the ability, obviously, to actually go out there and do it and understand the game and diagnose what offenses are doing. That's another level that we'll have to see. But man, does he have measurables and traits? And then at the end, here's what's crazy. He's also like an artist. He was a design major at UC Davis before he, pivoted and did business at Cal. But this is one of his pieces that he had up on Instagram. I don't even know how to describe what this is, but you can tell he definitely has an artistic side to him, as well as a football, fast, speedy, violent side to him.
His athleticism score, according to Next Gen Stats, ranked 7th, Sarah, among linebackers, and yet he goes on day 3. Now, it was early day 3, and given what the Ravens' other needs were at the time, particularly at corner, it had Todd McShay, who admitted at the time of this clip that he was nitpicking, playing devil's advocate. Listen to this.
And in the linebacker from Cal, that was honestly the only pick where I was like, 129 overall, and obviously you're nitpicking. We're talking 4th round towards the end. But 129 overall, and I look at this roster, and there were some other linebackers they could have gotten a little bit later, and I'm seeing the cornerback is still a position of need, which they obviously addressed later, as you mentioned with Bilal Cohn. Mm-hmm. Wide receiver, a position of need. They obviously addressed it later in the 6th round with LeJontay Wester, who I like, by the way. I think is a quick slot. He's got something to him. So
plays faster than he ran. He ran okay, but he plays faster than he ran.
But I look at that board at Teddy Buchanan there, and I see Quincy Riley 2 picks later.
Yeah.
Ball hawk.
Right.
Most comfortable corner in this. He and Hairston are the 2 most comfortable when the ball's in the air. Can get you the ball back. That might have been an option. Jalen Royals fell. And I wasn't the biggest Jalen Royals lover. I like Troy Horton more. But I didn't see him falling to the late 4th round. So, and Alec Iomanor, okay? Alec Iomanor.
The Stanford wide receiver, yeah.
The Stanford wide receiver is a big physical guy. If you want to see what the upside could be, he's trouble catching the football. I will grant that, okay? But Iomanor with it, you got DeAndre Hopkins towards the end. You got Rashad Bateman. You got Zay Flowers. I don't know. I just thought maybe that was an opportunity there. So
I agree.
Multiple times they're saying, look, we get it. We're nitpicking, but we can't get on here and praise every single general manager across the league for all 32 teams, which I can appreciate. Yeah. And I remember at the time, Sarah, live reacting. I can't remember which guest I had on at the time. I had a bunch on Saturday. Noah from For the Flock came on. Pete Gilbert came on. Kevin Ostreicher came on. A number of others came on, which was awesome. And we want to say thank you to all of our guests throughout the 3 days. This was a tremendous display of Ravens content. But these were the three that he just mentioned at the time. Louisville cornerback, Quincy Riley, Utah State wide receiver, Jalen Royals, and Stanford wide receiver, Alec Manor. As Todd went on to say, all of these positions, or I guess it's just two, corner and wide receiver, were taken care of after the fact, but just a little bit of devil's advocate in real time there, early on day 3.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. And like, not everything can be perfect, but now we move on to round 5, where the Ravens picked up another offensive lineman. This one was Carson Vincent, offensive tackle out of Alabama A&M. Now, Bobby, this one, I saw in the chat earlier that when I talked about Emery, being a swing tackle and then maybe him coming in if Ronnie Stanley gets hurt, and somebody in the chat said, well, that's what they got Carson Vincent for. And I hear that because Carson Vincent himself talked about how much tape he's watched of Ronnie Stanley, because he sees, some of himself in there. But I also see Carson Vincent more as a developmental pick. I don't see him as somebody that, as a 5th rounder, could come in right away out of Alabama A&M. And if Ronnie Stanley went down, then Carson's like ready to go. I don't think he's quite yet a finished product. I see Carson Vincent more as like a developmental guy, where maybe in like 2 years you could ask him of that. At most, maybe 1 year, but certainly not in round 1. At least I think that those are too high expectations for him. But he was a Senior Bowl standout. And that was important for him, because he needed to prove that he could, go up against some of the bigger guys at the Senior Bowl, and not just do it at a smaller school. And so check this out at the Senior Bowl. He's going up against, I believe, Shamar Stewart right here. Shamar puts on a spin move. Not a problem. Let's watch that again. Not a problem for Carson Vincent. Boom, boom. He's just right there. Shamar never got close to the quarterback. Here's another one. I don't know who he's going up against here, but just pancakes this guy. Pancakes him. And so he was able to prove there at the Senior Bowl, and it's probably why the Ravens were a little bit more comfortable, where who was it earlier in our super chat said that, hey, if you play well at the Senior Bowl, the Ravens are going to take you. So he's 6 foot. I see different measurables. Everybody, I've seen measurables anywhere from 6'6" to 6'7", 314 pounds, and 84 3/8 wingspan, which was 4th among all offensive linemen at the combine. And I love this about him. He went to the HBCU, went to an HBCU school, and he kind of proved there what he could do. And so big time schools that passed him by early when he was going into college, they came back and was, they were calling him, his phone was ringing, and he's like, nah, I'm staying loyal to the team that believed in me from the get-go. So he didn't, in a world of portals and people transferring all the time, he stayed loyal to his team that believed in him at the start. And because of his Senior Bowl kind of standout play, I think he was able to get drafted and prove that he can do it with some of the big dogs.
Here he is behind the mic with his new team at the NFL level during his introductory press conference, which was a virtual Zoom.
I had my 30th visit with them, and it was an amazing time. And, you always think in the back of your head, but especially coming from a small school, like, it's almost surreal. Like, you never, like, you think it's going to happen, but you never really know. So, like, I seen the Baltimore number pop up, and everything kind of slowed down a little bit. It kind of slowed down. I said, let me answer this call. But it's been a blessing. I don't know if it's even still hit me yet, but I can't put into words how much I'm blessed to be put into this position.
Bubbly. Carson Vincent. Bubbly. That's the word that comes to mind when you listen to him talk. He was so fired up in that moment. And apparently he tried to break Eric's hand at one point.
Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of a story that Eric told at the press conference on Saturday, is that when he came to visit, Carson shook his hand and he was just like, felt like his hand was going to break. And so when Carson went to go leave his office, he went to shake his hand again. DeCosta's like, "No, I'm good. We'll see you later, buddy." Maybe a little fist bump. We're not shaking that hand again.
Love it. If that's a sign of things to come about his physicality, that he's willing to take down the general manager, then I think he'll be just fine as he starts to develop within Baltimore's program. And now that brings us to the first of, 5. The
Oof.
first of 5 sixth-round picks. Very reminiscent of the 4th round in 2022 when they had, 6, I think it was? 178 overall. The Ravens chose Western Michigan corner Bilal Cohn. Sam Monson, NFL analyst, noting that he could see him becoming a starting corner in the NFL. Lots of things to love about him, including really impressive play versus Ohio State wide receivers. He wasn't the only one that was chiming in as well. Dane Brugler talking about Bilal Cohn. He missed the final 3 games of the 2022 season because of a sprained hyoid. Is it hyoid? I think it's
I think so.
hyoid bone, which he suffered when a ball carrier's knee hit his throat on a tackle attempt. That sounds excruciating. He had to get by on a liquid diet for a month. So if that doesn't show something about his resolve, I don't know what does. He's 6'1", 190, ranked 20th in terms of athleticism score, according to Next Gen Stats among corners in this year's class. But he ran a 4.4 340, a 1.54 10-yard split, jumped over 31 inches vert. The broad jump was 10.4. And it's a player with a lot of experience there. He played for a number of different colleges prior to Western Michigan, including Indiana State and Iowa Central Community College. So he's well-traveled. He's coming to Baltimore.
Yeah, and I think he's going to compete. He's going to try to compete for an outside corner spot, right? He's an outside corner. He's not really inside. He's got the length and the size for outside corner. I think he's going to compete with Tampa and Jalen Armour-Davis. All 3 of those guys are going to want to be CB4. The Ravens are leading with who we know is Nate Wiggins, Marlon Humphrey, and Cheeto Awuzie. And so all those guys are going to try to be that number 4 guy. And he's long, he's fast, he's athletic. He led his Western Michigan team with 9 pass breakups. He had 1 interception, and he already knows the Ravens' first-round draft pick. He actually trained for the past 2 months in the pre-draft process with Malachi Starks. So they've actually already been talking, and they know each other. And you asked earlier, like if, him sustaining that hyoid injury doesn't show what he can overcome. You said you don't know what does. Well, how about this? I got more. This is a guy that you definitely want to root for. So he was born in the United States, but was sent to live on the Ivory Coast at age 6. He came back and had to kind of like relearn English a little bit. His youngest brother died of cancer in 2016 when he was a freshman. He was homeless at one point and lived with a family of NBA guys in Trey and Tyus Jones in high school. So he has just overcome things left and right. By the way, he talked in his press conference right after the draft talking about that injury. And he's like, I didn't even notice it during the game. He's like, but then after the game, he's like, I couldn't quite breathe. He's like, I did not feel right. And so they took him to the hospital, and he had to stay overnight at the hospital while his team went home. And so, like you said, he had to do that liquid diet. That sounded pretty brutal. So this is a guy that has just overcome one adversity after another and is still standing and fighting today. So he knows how to fight, and he's gonna compete with TJ Tampa and Jalen Armour-Davis and see what he can do.
Super cool. I hadn't heard the Jones connection yet. And anybody that's followed college hoops and really the pros too, being that Tyus and Trey both made it to the pros as a brotherly pair. That's a couple good guys to know as you're kind of scratching and clawing in your own respective sport, the way that Bilal is. And here he is, a little snippet getting to know the Ravens media.
Well, I've always been a fan. Their defense has always been just a great defense to watch. They got dogs. You got Kyle Hamilton, and then you just got Malachi Starks, which is someone who I've had a relationship with throughout the last couple of months. We've been working out at the same spot over in Tampa, so we've been competing against each other, making each other better, joking around. So we got close throughout there. So like being able to come here with him and getting right back to it is really, really great, really great.
Appreciate you guys for being with us. You just mentioned that the familiarity there with Malachi, that certainly can't hurt during rookie minicamp and his whole transition that they're both making to the pros.
Did you see how clean he looked in that kind of like baby blue, light blue suit jacket with the gold handkerchief? He was He was ready. He was ready for that day, that moment. So good for him. Happy for him coming all this way.
People were ready for your return because we have over 1,000 concurrents on YouTube, or at least we did a second ago, and almost 2,000 concurrents across all platforms today. Thank you so much for being with us, Tila. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Hit that notification bell. Let's rip through a few super chats before we continue in the 6th round. Heather McCubbins, a channel member, says Tyler Loop, the next Tucker, or better. I already wrote that one. I already read that one, I should say. Robbie Pate says, I'm so excited to scream Loop at a Ravens game. Yvette.
By Sunday, Bobby was like a 4-year-old trying to wait up for Santa. Good job, you two. Hashtag Voltrons. I'm sure you were like a zombie.
Appreciate you. I have no idea how I was actually in front of a camera on Saturday and Sunday, but we did it. Sod Blitz 34 with another one. The NFL really marbles flag football team out to declare, quote, this is all for the girls before announcing Justin Tucker's likely replacement. Boise Hingis.
They obviously didn't know who they were going to pick before they decide who's going to announce the picks weeks in advance. So obviously they didn't know who that was going to be. But Boise says day 3, Saturday afternoon draft weekend when Ravens front office separates from the pack.
Evan, sup Voltrons? We are organizing a Vault Fantasy League. If you're interested, reply to this and join Bobby's Discord. Need 5 to 7 more people. First I've heard of it, but the Discord link, and we're going to get the Vaults fired up at some point here. Obviously, the draft has taken precedent in recent weeks, but my Discord link, I guess Evan's getting this started, is in the show notes below. It's free to join. Appreciate you, Evan, for doing that. It's pretty cool. Yeah. On to the 6th round, or I should say we continue in the 6th round, 186 overall, an Arizona kicker who already many mentions have come through the chat and super chats. It's Tyler Loop, Sarah. This was certainly something that didn't come as a surprise, but maybe it wasn't a player that was on a lot of folks' radar. It was not Andy Borregales out of Miami. It was not Fitzgerald out of Florida State. Instead, it's Tyler Loop, who was widely regarded within the kicking community as the player in this year's class that has the biggest leg. So big that this past season at Arizona, he hit from 62 in a game. Now, he was 18 of 23 in total, and here he is from 65, by the way, if 62 wasn't enough for you. This is in practice, not in game mode with his pro training session here. Oh, and how about 70? Is that all right? How about 70 for you? Loop's got a big leg. Sarah, last year, he was 18 of 23.
Nailed it.
He was 6 of 9, though, from 50+, a.k.a. 3 of those 5 misses came from 50+. Randy Brown and the Ravens coaching staff from a kicking perspective clearly see something in him. They chose him in the 6th round, and all that remains to be seen is he Justin Tucker's successor? We continue to wait for the NFL ongoing investigation to release their findings, its findings on Justin. The Ravens had to do this. They needed the insurance. They went and did it on day 3.
Yeah, this is probably where Sod Blitz is talking about, because the Ravens had such good value with Malachi Starks and Mike Green, that to go all the way down to number 9, right, might feel like it's bad value at the end of the draft. And my guess is this pick right here, Tyler Loop, a kicker in the 6th round, probably hurt that value. But Bobby, you and I had, I'm pretty sure you were in agreement with me, but I had predicted the Ravens for sure going to use one of their 5 6th-round draft picks on a kicker. And I think once the Patriots did so with Andy Borregales out of Miami, that they were like, okay, well, we should go ahead and use one of our 5 6th-round picks and do this. And so it sounded like what Eric DeCosta said, Randy Brown, their kicking coach specialist, they, sent him out and they were like, you go and scout all these kickers. And when he returned, he said, give me Tyler Loop. That's who we wanted above all the other guys. We hadn't even really covered Tyler Loop because we had done Borregales and Fitzgerald, and but it was Randy that liked Loop. Loop described himself as a kicking nerd, and like you said, he hit that 62-yarder in a game. My question is less about whether he'll replace Tucker. I'm kind of already that's where I'm at. I think that's what they're doing. John Harbaugh asked if he told Justin Tucker that they'd be drafting a kicker, and he's like, yeah, I actually did. He goes, he probably already knew it anyway. he had seen all of our comments, because they said over and over again that they were going to go out and get a kicker. They were very clear about that. But Justin Tucker was at the Ravens facility last week for the beginning of the offseason training program. And Harbaugh told him, this is what we're doing. To me, it's less a question of if he's going to replace Tucker. My prediction is that he will. I'm more interested in, is this guy out of Arizona going to be able to adapt to the AFC North and the weather that goes on in Baltimore and Pittsburgh and Cleveland, off the lake, all that kind of stuff. But you know what? Justin Tucker was out of Texas, and that's pretty nice weather too. So guys can adjust. And he's already talked to many of the Ravens. He's even talked about part of the kicking operation, snapping, holding, all that kind of stuff. And so this was probably the most hilarious quote to me from all of the press conferences. Is they asked DaCosta if Loop was gonna replace Tucker, and he said that Loop is talented and he really hasn't thought about how it impacts Tucker's roster spot at this point. Eric DaCosta for sure tells truths and he tells lies. That's what he does to make sure nobody knows what he's really thinking. This one might have been the most easily detected lie. Give me a bunch of blue caps in the chat, because that's what I didn't ever think of that. Could Loop, who we just drafted with what people are saying is terrible value in the 6th round. We've never drafted a kicker before. It's always been undrafted guys. We've never done that. But my goodness, I've never even thought about the impact it would have on Justin Tucker. EDC.
Well, we all sit here remaining in wonder mode too, in terms of the umbrella over everything that you just discussed is how will he manage pressure management if he is indeed Justin Tucker's successor, entering a time where you are in Super Bowl or bust mode. And at some point, you will have to call on him in an AFC North game, in a do or die game, in a moment where you're trying to force overtime or finish up a game in regulation and walk it off. And how will he respond to that? It's really hard to obviously figure that out through the scouting process, but they feel like they have their guy. Will he have to become their guy right away? That obviously remains to be seen. We'll continue to follow it. In the 6th, again, one of 5 6th-round picks was the aforementioned LeJohntay Wester, the wide receiver out of Colorado. He went 203 overall, 2024 honorable mention, all Big 12 conference. He transferred from Florida Atlantic, which I think is notable because Willie Taggart's the running backs coach in Baltimore, and he's the former head coach at FAU. So perhaps there was a little bit of inroads there. He had 326 career receptions. That's the most in FBS over the last 10 seasons. So very productive. But Sarah, they might not be asking him to catch the ball as a wide receiver. Maybe a little bit here and there as he competes with Devontae Walker and the rest of that back end of the wide receiver room. But they may very well be giving him a legitimate chance to compete as a return specialist, which was an area that they felt very unsettled at, not just last year. And Eric DaCosta admitted that during his press conference, but really in years past as well.
That's exactly what they brought him in for. It was for the returner role. That's why at the top I said they really didn't pick anybody for, the skills positions on offense, running back, tight end, and I even kind of sort of put wide receiver in there, even though he's a wide receiver, because I think they brought him in for that returner job, and that returner job almost exclusively. Eric DaCosta in his press conference on Saturday said he felt like he didn't do a good enough job of making sure they had a returner. I mean, he didn't go out and spend money on a veteran returner, but he was injured off and on, but there was no real plan behind him. And so that's what LeJohntay is going to do out of Colorado. He's twitchy. He's got juke moves for days. And the Ravens need him. They ranked 16th last year in punt returns at 9.7 yards per return, while Wester had 12.12 yards per punt return last year. So it's almost a full 3 yards better. He did have a 76-yard return for a touchdown last year. And so, sure, as long as he's on the roster, he'll, be in the conversation for wide receiver. But you mentioned Devontae. Obviously, there's, Flowers, and there's Bateman, and now Hopkins and Tylan Wallace. And so I really just don't see him getting a lot of shots at wide receiver, but the Ravens need a returner, and this is who they're going to turn to. And Bobby on social media, He's already showing love to the Ravens franchise QB. He put in one of his Instagram stories, LJ, we on the way, and had an eagle and purple heart emoji and tagged him in it. So I think he's already like, hey, I know I'm coming out there for returner, but maybe, just maybe, if I make Lamar like me, maybe I'll get some shots at wide receiver too.
I absolutely love the Photoshop there. You can already tell he's going to fit in perfectly, and I cannot wait to see if he can give them some explosiveness, some much-needed explosiveness, which helps with flipping fields and overall field position, of course, when it comes to this Ravens offense. Not a fan chiming in says Wester will be the starting slot in 2026. Book that. And dream, Sarah.
It's smoke with the Texans from now on, but the Mike Green pick made up for it. Also excited for Starks, Peebles, and Wester.
Make no mistake, we know what you're referring to, Queon. Jaden Higgins was taken by the Houston Texans, and that was Queon's pick the entire way. We know what you're saying. Leon Hargrove showing us some love as well via Super Chat. We appreciate you guys for being with us. We are getting to the end of our pick-by-pick analysis. But let me tell you, last but certainly not least, and he's not the last player. There's several more, but this guy shouldn't be buried into what's become a very high-volume sixth round, because this is a player that they got some pretty darn good value at 210 overall in the sixth round. It is defensive lineman Aeneas Peebles out of Virginia Tech. He was first among defensive tackles last year in college football, Sarah, with a 91.2 pass rush grade in 2024. He is a bit undersized, and I think one of the reasons why that's really obvious is the chip that he clearly has on his shoulder.
Seriously.
Look at the screenshots of tweets that we have provided for you after the fact being selected. Y'all messed up letting me in the door, NFL. Now I'm going to make it my home with 1 million exclamation points. Then he says, go Flock, and he tags the Ravens. He's just over 6 feet tall, 282 pounds. He ran a 4.94 in the 40. Vertical jump was 32.5 inches, and the broad jump was 9 feet, 1 inch. He ran a 4.7 20-yard shuttle. He's not going to overwhelm you, but the guy is – I feel like this guy's heart makes him already an early favorite to be this year's rookie fan favorite, and I feel like that's sort of a universal thought that I've been seeing on social media since his name was called.
Yeah, he's definitely my day 3 favorite. Definitely my day 3 favorite. As Brady, make sure I get his last name right, Ballhorn, pointed out, and he's got a database of all these guys. He says Peebles, or how am I saying his, like, Peebles? He's like, Peebles at 210, great pick. Some people had him projected as high as 3rd round, Bobby. He said, my database has 388 defensive linemen. The only players with better than a 12% pressure rate and sub 540 was Derek Harmon, who went in the 1st round, TJ Sanders, who went in the 2nd round, and then it's Peebles and Aiden Huntington. And then PFF, they've got Peebles with a 91.2 pass rush grade in 2024, which was first, count it, first among defensive tackles. He had 25 pressures last year, which was tied for the most among all defensive tackles. He's the FBS's fastest time to pressure among defensive tackles with 2.44 seconds. And so it kind of makes you wonder, if this guy's getting after quarterbacks, if he's got the best pass rush grade of all defensive tackles in 2024, how in the heck did he drop to 2010? And it's because he's undersized, which is ironic because his nickname, which he is pushing forward, is Fub, which apparently, according to your research, as you told me in the pregame call, stems from him being a fat baby. So
I guess so.
He wants to be called Fub, but the irony is that he fell to 210 because he's undersized. But listen, this is the defensive tackle they got. They were looking for sure, and Eric DeCosta said that they still need it. They were looking for like that run stuffer, huge dude that could replace Michael Pierce. You have Travis Jones there at nose tackle. He can be more of your pass rusher, like a Matabike, all that kind of thing. So they'll address it, whether it's through free agency or undrafted rookies or both. In fact, if memory serves, Michael Pierce was an undrafted free agent. So they still have that hold the plug, but this is a fun pick because he's interactive. He's sticking his chest out. He will bring pass rush help and pressures from the interior of the defensive line. And I'm excited. Just put him in on third downs, and let's see what Nnamdi, Mike Green, Odafe, whoever else, let's see what they can do.
He certainly got John Harbaugh's attention.
Is Coach Harbaugh, one of his guys. He loved his tape. We loved his explosion. He's a little undersized, but he's a twitchy, disruptive player who can rush the passer. He plays hard. I think he's got a really, really good skill set for us as a third down sub rusher who runs to the football and can make some plays that way.
There you have it. That's the early plan for Aeneas Fubb Peebles. I just get the sense that we are going to be talking about this guy, and he is going to give us some content in the coming months. Well, if you'd believe it, there is one other sixth rounder that we need to discuss before we get to the final pick of this year's draft class, which was a seventh rounder. But in the sixth, 212 overall, Robert Longerbeam, Rutgers corner, the second corner to have been drafted. He ran a 4.39. He was rolling. He does have a slight frame, though, 5'11", $175. Jonas notes here a couple other things. He racked up 42 passes defended over the past 4 seasons at Rutgers, including 5 picks. So he does have that playmaking ability. And Eric DeCosta, Sarah, spoke about him and the other corner in
Cone.
Bilal Cone. Thank you.
Beam, I think, another corner. As I was looking at it, the last couple of weeks for me, the 2 guys that were most intriguing corner-wise were with BK and Longerbeam. And, I think we were kind of going back and forth because they were so close and both so talented in different ways. And I think our goal was to get one of those 2 guys. And as we got to the end of the draft, Longerbeam was still there. It was like a no-brainer for us to take him. He's just a really, really quick-footed, good corner who can play off coverage. He supports the run. He plays bigger than his size, and he's got tremendous speed. One thing we know here in Baltimore is you can never have enough corners. We think now we have a really, really good mix of veteran corners and also younger developmental guys who can help us get better.
Well, Sarah, didn't stop him, though, despite the undersized overall physique from being named in Indy to the all-combine defensive team. There he is, Robert Longerbeam, and guess what? His new teammate, Malachi Starks, find his way onto this list as well.
Where I see Cone competing on the outside because of Longerbeam's, smaller size. I see him more in the slot and competing there at 5'11", 174. But I can guarantee you this, Jimmy Smith and Keaton Mitchell said the same thing when the Ravens drafted Malachi Starks. They were like, we know just a little bit about him, but we guarantee you if the Ravens draft him, he can hit, he can be physical. And it's the same thing here, right? They love him that despite his slight frame, kind of like in our Darius Washington, he goes all out. He goes all out, and they like what he brings. He's fast. He ran a 4.39 40. He had 11 pass breakups. He had tied his team with a high of 2 interceptions, and he was a captain over at Rutgers. So he was he's now the second Rutgers player that the Ravens have ever drafted, the other one being Ray Rice. So when Eric DeCosta said at the end of that soundbite that they feel like they've got a lot of corners, both, veterans and young guys and some in the middle, he's definitely right. There's a lot of guys there, and that's good because corners can get injured and you need depth. And so there's going to be so much competition at that position for one of the final 53-man roster spots. And I assume a couple of these guys will be on the practice squad.
Yeah. And finally, in the 7th round, one that I just could not stay on live for. I just couldn't do it. And I owe Garrett an apology. There was a big gap, guys, between 212 and 243. And at the time, Sarah, I'd been on for 5.5 hours. I just couldn't do it. I'm sorry, Garrett. 243 overall. 7th round is LSU offensive lineman Garrett Dellinger. He was a 4-year starter for the Tigers. He primarily played left guard. He did miss the final 6 games of last year, as Jeff noted on X, with an ankle injury. And yes, he became the 3rd offensive lineman to have been drafted over the weekend. And there are several others, by the way, that there have been reports on in terms of what we discussed earlier on when it comes to open tryouts for mini camp, so on and so forth, undrafted guys. And a nice little tie-in here to the Maryland area that Sam Cohn noted. He was born in Maryland, Garrett was, prior to his family moving to Michigan, and his mother, Stephanie, was the 1992 Gatorade Basketball Player of the Year in Maryland at Mercy High. So a nice little tie-in there. Eric DeCosta spoke about the fit and what they ultimately liked about Garrett Dellinger.
Guy is Garrett Dellinger, another offensive lineman from LSU. We watched him this year at the Senior Bowl. He's a talented athlete, a big, wide-body guy, a true guard. He's physical, he's tough. I think he's a smart player. Incidentally, born in the state of Maryland, so that was kind of cool. A guy that we're excited about. We think he has traits, and we like the way he plays.
Sarah, much like they did a couple years ago with Voorhees in the 7th round, who was also injured his final year in college, they go get Garrett Dellinger and bring in some developmental guard depth.
Yeah, so this is the first time in the last 7 years, I believe, that the Ravens haven't drafted 3 offensive linemen in a single year. And he's the second LSU lineman. They must have loved those LSU linemen because he was right there playing in the same line as Emery Jones, the Ravens' 3rd round pick, swing tackle, Patrick McCary replacement. So he's had 30 career starts at LSU. 24 at left guard. He's only had 2 flags, 2 penalties in 1,937 snaps. Yes, please. Likely probably fell a little bit in the 7th round because of that injury that he missed the final 6 games. So maybe he went under the radar a little bit, but another guy that I see a little bit more developmental. I don't know if he's going to beat out the other guys that will be competing for left guard, but I just like where the Ravens' head is at, where last year was kind of like the first phase of completely, reconstructing this offensive line, where they had 3 new starters and started with Roger Rosengarten. Luckily, Ronnie Stanley stayed healthy, and then they had two new guards. And so now they're taking the second phase of that, where they re-signed Ronnie Stanley, and now they're just putting in as much depth as possible, making guys compete. And so we'll see in the long run where Garrett will land. But as a 7th rounder, he's obviously, even though they got, pretty good value out of him, but as a 7th rounder, he's got an uphill battle in the competition.
And that is your pick by pick analysis. All 11, count them 11. Oof. They got an immediate impact starting caliber safety. They got the top edge sack getter across FBS in 24. You got some swing tackle potential replacement in there. You got guard depth options, which are multiple. You've got inside linebacker depth and a guy who could potentially provide you some special teams. Justin Tucker insurance with the biggest leg in this year's class. A return specialist favorite. Interior defensive line depth with day 2 value taken day 3, aka Mr. Fub, and never enough corners. Very easy to say on paper that it's an A, right? A lot of pundits are saying that's the case. Grading is always tough because you've never seen these guys and their game translate to the NFL level. But Sarah, I'd say it was a productive, successful when it comes to the objectives going into the weekend kind of draft performance for Eric and his staff.
That's right. I mean, I think you said it best. Like, I think sometimes the grades this time of year is a little bit dumb because we don't know until they get on the field. I think what most people are doing is they have like their draft boards and they'll say something like, Mike Green went at number 59 and he's ranked number 12 on my draft prospect list. And so that's more, I think, what they're doing is just grading value compared to what they had on their own board. So ultimately, we'll have to look back and see how they do. But like I said at the top, to me, last year they got 2 studs at the top in Nate Wiggins and Roger Rosengarten. If they can repeat that with Malachi Starks and Mike Green, then that alone will be a great draft. And then you've got 9 others. And I do think we'll have instant impact from some of those 9, but more on special teams like Wester and Loop and Loop. I think those 2, and maybe Buchanan, right? And so that's kind of what they got. The rest is like, okay, let's throw them in, have some competition. Maybe Emery Jones, becomes a guy down the line. And so really I'm looking for those top 2 hits, those special teamers, and then maybe 1 or 2 other guys developing long-term and being able to contribute.
Lost in the shuffle of a crazy weekend was Eric DeCosta's comments on Mark Andrews, who said at the end of day 3 that at this point, and this is a quote, at this point, I would really expect Mark to be on this team. He declined to say whether he entertained any trade offers for Mark over the course of the weekend, but obviously he did make a definitive statement, as you noted on X here, and that was the quote that was attached to it.
Yeah, a definitive statement that he obviously purposely didn't make before. And based off of reports and things that I'm seeing on Twitter is, they were open to listening to offers. They just didn't get an offer that they felt like was worth Mark Andrews. Good. You never want to be desperate and just take anything. And so, but when he says at this point, I would really expect Mark to be on this team when, 2 weeks earlier, he wouldn't say that. And he didn't say it, even before that, means that he was open for business. He didn't like the business that he saw. And so now he's ready to make that definitive statement. And Mark Andrews, now with the draft in the rearview mirror, will 100% be on the Ravens 2025 roster.
As we learned mid-draft over the weekend, the schedule release, the annual schedule release where we figure out the dates and the times for all the opponents that are on the Ravens schedule this year, is set for May 14th. That is a Wednesday. You and I will do our annual show that night. We look forward to it. May 14th. Book your calendars, mark your calendars, and come hang with us for our schedule release live stream party. This was just shameful. I couldn't, just when you think you've seen it all when it comes to the NFL, Jeff Ulbricht's son, who is the defensive coordinator, he was the interim head coach, you might remember, for the New York Jets after Robert Saleh was fired last year. And then they don't retain Jeff, and he gets a defensive coordinator position with the Atlanta Falcons. Sarah, he left an iPad open in his home. His 21-year-old son was apparently visiting, and he decided that he would take what he saw on the iPad, which was Shedeur Sanders' NFL-issued cell phone with a specific number attached to it, which was trying to prevent these types of leaks and these types of pranks from happening on draft day, so that Shedeur would have his own personal temporary cell phone so that a team could call him, which he had to wait till day 3 in order to get that call. But he thought the call came in earlier, except it was a prank from Jeff's son with his buddies in a very frat-like move that was just a terrible look, so distasteful. And ultimately, he's telling Shedeur that he's on the phone with Mickey Loomis, the general manager of the New Orleans Saints. I mean, can you just, what are we doing here?
Listen, I mean, these kids are dumb for sure. If I'm the parent, I mean, Bobby, what's the upside to this? I mean, your dad is a defensive coordinator, probably hoping to become a head coach one day. I'm just assuming that, knowing that almost all coaches, that's their ultimate, goal and destination. And the team for which he works just had to put out a statement that called your dad out by name and had to call you out by name. And what is the upside to this? That you prank, and it's not just Shedeur. It sounds like they also got Penn State tight end Tyler Warren. They feel like the area code and it was a number that was similar. And so it sounds like they may have gotten 2 people, not just Shedeur. And so it's like, what's the upside for you on this? And this is the side of the mind of trolls that I do not understand. Maybe some of the trolls in our chat, we have some of our own for sure. What satisfaction you get out of that, what there is to gain, what you can gain versus what your dad can lose is out of the ballpark, not even in the same category. And so I'm telling you, as a parent, you got to be coming down hard and be, extraordinarily disappointed. At this point, he's 21, not in high school anymore. 21, you're supposed to be an adult. And it just puts your dad in a terrible position, and then has these draft hopefuls just messing with them on the biggest day of their lives that they've worked so hard for. Just dumb stuff.
Oh, it's to the point where it's just so excruciatingly embarrassing for Jeff, who by all accounts is a great dude and really handled last year's adversity with the Jets and just the dumpster fire that situation was across the board with class. So, and now this is one of his first impressions with his new organization. And to your point, he obviously is chasing after one of those coveted 32 head coaching jobs, which do not come up all that often. So anyway, that was that. That's one of our quick hits. This is another one, Andrew Berry's face. I did listen to the press conference that was following day 3 for the Cleveland Browns when they selected Shedeur, and they had also drafted Dillon Gabriel the day prior, and Warren Sharp and many others having a great old fun with the screenshot of not only Andrew's face, but Kevin Stefanski's face when ESPN cut to the draft room, and they were all just like, so what's the right word? They said they were exhausted. They were Mary Kay asked them specifically about this clip that went viral of them looking, let's say, underwhelmed about the Shedeur selection. And I'm putting that nicely. And so both Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski made it clear in the press conference that it's because they were exhausted and the timing of the clip didn't match up with the timing of the selection, apparently. Now, Sarah, there's a lot of
what were they
talk
clapping
online.
for then? If it doesn't match up to the selection, they were clapping for something.
Who knows? But all I know is that there's a lot of talk online about the speculation that Jimmy Haslam stepped in and said, you got to go get Shedeur. and it may not have been part of their plans. Who knows? There's no merit to that, but that's the discussion online.
Well, there is. If you guys go check out the video, there's 3 guys that's in the shot for the clapping, right? There's just like the golf claps with like, it's like what I do when I'm at, my second graders, play. It's like you're happy, and you're by the end of the hour, you're like, okay, I got to get another second grader who just like, okay, got to get through these claps and whatnot. That's exactly what it looked like. But there was one guy in that front row, I got to go back and watch it, that actually looks legit excited. And I was like, well, he got his way for sure. And so here we are, though. The Browns have 5 quarterbacks on their roster: Joe Flacco, Deshaun Watson, Kenny Pickett, Shedeur Sanders, and their 3rd-round pick, whose name I don't even know. Who
Dillon
is that?
Gabriel from Oregon.
There we go. Dillon Gabriel from Oregon. And we said we thought Shedeur and/or Jalen Milroe will end up in the AFC North. We were right on Shedeur. It just was not under the circumstances at all that we predicted. And Bobby, out of all these people, I see Shedeur as their future.
Oh, well, he's going to have to be.
Their 3rd-rounder could be it, right? Like he's gonna say, no, it's me, but it's Shedeur.
He and Dillon Gabriel could be looked at as their future. Deshaun clearly is not. Joe's on the back 9. Pickett's probably going to be a journeyman backup for the rest of his career, which is a great opportunity. I mean, it seems like he got his opportunity in Pittsburgh, and there hasn't necessarily been a team or a chance given to him since. So yeah, it's going to be between Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. And by the way, I just had to pull up a better screenshot for you.
Oh,
I mean, come on, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at this. That cracks me up.
Here's what's funny, because I'm not joking. I almost didn't pick up my phone at all on Saturday. And so I was not following the draft at all. I mean, it was just so crazy over here. I think I got out like a quote retweet or something early in the morning before I like when I was still in bed about to get up. And so I didn't even learn of it until people were at my house, probably at 7:00. And they were like, hey, can we get your draft analysis? And I'm like, well, I can do the first 2 days, but I can't do today because I don't know what happened. They're like, oh, you don't? And I was like, no. I was like, actually, can you tell me, like, did Shedeur Sanders ever get picked? And they were like, yeah, in the 5th round. And I was like, holy moly. And I was like, who got him? And they were like, the Browns. And I just started laughing because I was like, he ended up with the Browns in the long run. And I don't know it's so funny because I'm always like, I feel bad for quarterbacks that get drafted early in the 1st round by the Browns. And it's like, man, tough for you, but Browns are always, high in the drafting order. And so you just got to take that, but at least you're getting paid handsomely by being like a top 10 pick. But here Shedeur is as a 5th rounder. He's not going to be getting paid handsomely, and he's still with the Browns. And so he's got an uphill climb for sure over there.
I got to tell you, if they will continue to be below 500 and Browns like this year, it might actually serve them well because the 2026 quarterback class is supposed to be a lot more stacked. And Sarah, if that's their whole plan all along, that they're going to be picking high again next year and we're going to bring in as many quarterbacks this year to try and compete, well, it might actually serve them decently well, crazy enough. One more quick hit, and you brought this in, and I saw it as well, and guess what? First and foremost, Anthony Edwards is him. When LeBron retires, he might be the guy that's catching that torch that's passed from LeBron. They got a commanding series lead right now over the Lakers. He is absolutely sensational. And apparently, Kyle Hamilton used to lock him up.
I love it. Kyle Hamilton posted this photo of him guarding Anthony Edwards, I'm assuming as high schoolers. Is this right? This has got to be high schoolers.
Oh, yeah.
And because Anthony Edwards was just tearing up the Lakers, 43 points as the Wolves gained that 3-1 advantage. Kyle Hamilton posts this photo of him guarding Anthony and says, I'm here if y'all need me, Lakers. And then Ryan Clark responds, how many points did he have on you this night? And Kyle says, well, we don't need to get into that.
I love that.
Should the Lakers be calling you or not, Kyle? That's what we need to know. But of course, Kyle, I'm sure he was a basketball star. Like he's got the body for it. His dad played basketball, right? His dad was a hooper.
His father played professional basketball overseas in Greece. That's where Kyle was born. And I'm pretty sure Kyle had offers coming out of school.
Yeah. Yeah. That would not be surprising. So, that coming through, just some comic relief in the middle of all these draft picks was hilarious.
Love it. A couple more super chats before we jump. We hope you guys have enjoyed this pick by pick analysis. We've got over 2,200 concurrents today. Thank you so much for being with us. Olu says the tight end we got as an UDFA was the guy that Emery spoke on. Olu, I actually haven't. I've seen a few tweets. I've bookmarked a few tweets, but because a lot of these players are just tryouts, like for an open tryout type thing to be invited to minicamp, I don't know the player that you're speaking on. So if you could let us know, we can bring it up on the screen who that might be. Leon Hargrove.
It was my hope that the Ravens picked Aeneas Peebles up, or that they would have picked him up, and I'm glad they did.
And Yvette says fire him or he should get sued, regarding Jeff Wilbrick, the Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator. I have seen some reaction online that's similar to Yvette's. I have a hard time with that one. Obviously, the iPad should not have been out on the table for the taking, just sitting there out in the open. But I have a hard time with that one, Sarah. He's a 21-year-old man. He's not a kid. He's a man.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, just as somebody with 4 kids, as much as you teach and coach and encourage and all of that, at the end of the day, they're the ones that got to go out and make decisions. And there are some, not like this, that my kids make that make me want to pull my hair out, because I'll be like, we talked about this. We've gone through this. And it's like, just at the end of the day, they got to make their own decisions. So it's hard for me to hold parents, responsible for everything, especially as a 21-year-old that they do. That being said, if the Falcons are upset about, where the iPad is, but I mean, I don't know, you take your work home and you study it and this and that. And you're like, okay, I'm doing I'm bringing work home with me. I'm going above and beyond, not just working at work. And then you put it down. I just can't fault the parent for that. And then a 21-year-old comes in and makes a dumb decision like that. That's where I'm at with it.
You and me both. Dreams and Ross Tromans. Appreciate you guys both for believing in what we're building. You are this episode's monthly shout-out sponsors of ours because of the support that you give us through Patreon. So thank you both. Quion, Ross, if you guys are interested in doing the same, I almost said Ross. Patreon.com/RavensVault podcast. If you're looking to get more involved with the channel, you can also support Manta Sleep by clicking on the link that's included as a pinned comment right now in the live chat. All of our social platforms, all of what we have going on the back end is in the show notes. Take a peruse through there before you finish up the show. Awesome start to the week, partner. We, at some point this week, probably more towards Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I think we're going to do what we promised we would last week, which was check in with our AFC North partners. Maybe Brooke Pryor, perhaps Kelsey Conway, get them on the show. And we got to figure out who's going to be the Cleveland representative, perhaps Mary Kay. But all that will be coming up at the end of the week, so we can get a good level of familiarity about what the AFC North was up to over the course of this weekend. Olu is clarifying the player, the UDFA, and he says it's Sam Pitts. He was a hurdler from a D1 college, wanted to play football, played 1 year and blew up. So there you go. He's going to get a chance, as a lot of these undrafted free agents will over the course of the coming weeks, Sarah.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. I'm excited to see who they do bring in. I'm especially excited to see which nose tackles they bring in. But Bobby, this is it. The Ravens use the weekend. This is the plan all along of how they were going to get better. It was mostly through the draft. Wasn't the most exciting, probably the least exciting since I've been covering the Ravens. The the free agency period that we just had was very boring. But in some ways it's a good thing because they had so many players already locked up. And so this was always going to be the way that they mostly improve. And we're going to find out if they do once the season comes. There's not a lot of roster spots at all. Everything looks good on paper, but we'll see what happens once these guys get out on the field.
Tinsay hits us with one on the way out. Lamar is protected. Defense is settling. Wide receiver bond. Thank you, Tinsay, for one closing here. And Sam Pitts, by the way, I don't know if he's a tight end, by the way. I'm just going to look this up real quick, who this hurdler is all about. He is, I guess he is. Okay, the University of Minnesota Duluth tight end, Sam Pitts. That's super interesting. We're going to have to look into him a little bit more with all these other ones. I guess he was a former wide receiver too. Anyway, we'll look at it. We'll see who actually sticks too, because there's a number of these players that are linked to the Ravens, and the Aaron Wilsons of the world have been firing those tweets off over the last couple of days, and it's up for us to figure out, which ones we actually want to tell you about. Yeah,
the Ravens will get an official list, and I think once we get out their list, we can go through them.
I think it's smart.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd be on here for another hour, and we already gave you guys 90 minutes, and you got to get your parents to the airport. So with that, we appreciate you guys so much for all the support this past weekend and into this week and moving forward. We're looking forward to OTAs, mini camp, training camp, and everything else in between that's still to come. For Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from this pick-by-pick analysis, and a great way to start off this Monday. Go support our brand sponsors. Go support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, hitting that notification bell, and ultimately rejoining us tomorrow in under 23 hours from right now for a Tuesday Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. And as always, Vaultrons, thanks for spending some time with us here inside the vault. We will catch you then. Later.